Now we go to the love of your life at that point, which was the Italian.
I met him in a restaurant. He was a waiter with Christopher Biggins. Yes, he said, "My friend fancies you. Do you fancy her?" This went down like a cup of cold sick. And he was very Italian. And of course, the interesting thing is, I'd gone from the sublime to the ridiculous. At least you can't say I repeated myself. You know, I'm now with a man who loves me. I love you. I'm Italian. I'm a passionate. I make a love. I eat, I drink, I make a love. I can't understand the Englishmen. They talk all the time, but they don't do. I'm like... He swept me off my feet, and he is the father of my children, and I was in love. I was mad, passionately in love. So all the warning signs of a bit possessive, a bit jealous, and people would say, "Oh, but isn't it lovely that he's jealous?" And you think, well, it is quite nice, isn't it? And he was so handsome and dashing, and he was like a film star. In fact, we'd go into a room, and everybody would be looking at him, and I'd be like his sort of agent, you know. I'd be sort of... But we did fall passionately, madly in love. And after about 2 months, though, I realised that he'd taken my life over, and to the point that one day he went off to work, and I was doing the ironing or something, and he came rushing back in half an hour later, opening all the cupboards, in the wardrobe, under the bed. "You've got a man here! I know you've got a man here! You are hiding a man!" What? And this was the first sign. Now, you know, had I been sensible, I'd have seen the warning signs, but I just thought, again, you know, whereas with Greg I thought I could cure his impotency, that with this, if I gave Nunzio enough love and made him feel secure, he'd love me. And of course, again, the self-worth, I couldn't believe that somebody as handsome as him could love somebody like me. And if I showed him what a wonderful housewife I was, it would all be marvellous. And I loved Naples, and I loved his mother. His father was dead, and I loved his sisters, and we used to go, and I thought that this is it, I'm going to live the life. And I suppose that's a bit of the actress in me too, you know, we kind of play the role. But when I took Nunzio home to meet my dad and Mum, that we were all sat round, and my dad said, "So, Nunzio, you come from Naples, I hear." "Oh, Mr. Bellingham, it's a fantastic city. It's a wonderful city. I love my country. I love my city. It's a beautiful. You must see this a beautiful city." And I said, "Oh, yes, no, I've seen it. Yes. I bombed it, you know, during the..." So it didn't bode well. Anyway, we got married, and I was as happy as you could imagine. And then about 6 weeks into the marriage, I went to pick him up from work, and I'd been doing a gig up in Leicester, with Bernie Winters and Gareth Hunt, actually, opening a fete or doing something. And we'd had a few drinks, and I tipped up, you know, full of the joys of spring, to pick him up. "Where have you been? Where you been all day?" And we didn't have mobile phones or anything like that. And he just screamed at me all the way home. And we got back to my flat, and I was sitting listening to him screaming, and suddenly there was a crack and silence and blood. And I realised he'd punched me and broken my nose. And I just couldn't believe it. And everybody says to me, "Oh, you should have got up and walked out, darling," you know. Well, you don't, because he was as shocked, probably, as I was. And he then burst into tears. "Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I didn't mean to do this. Oh, God, I'm so upset." I drove myself to A&E with my nose halfway across my face. They wouldn't... This was a Friday night, and I was actually doing a series called Murphy's Mob for ITV, so I was filming on the Monday. Nobody touch me or treat me until the swelling went down. So I spent the whole weekend listening to him weeping and wailing. And on the Monday, I thought, what am I going to do? So I rang Roy Sanders, and his secretary said, "Well, he will be here this afternoon, come in." So we went in, and I'm sat there with Nunzio in front of the surgeon, and he said, "How did you do this, Lynda?" I looked at Nunzio. "On the steering wheel of my car," I said. "Really?" he said. "Are you sure? Because whatever I write here, Lynda, I can't change afterwards for the records." I said, "Yes, honestly." He said, "Have you got private health insurance?" "No." He said, "OK, I'll do it tonight." So he took me in, and he put me back together again, just as brilliantly. So it was a shock, and it was the beginning of 16 years. Now, again, I don't want to bring the evening down, but again, it's very important to me. I do a lot of work for domestic violence, and I'll bet you there's people here tonight, women and men, who have been victims of domestic violence. And it's not about somebody ongoingly beating you to a pulp. Once somebody's hurt you, and once somebody's frightened you, you haven't got a life together. You can't have an argument. my whole life for 16 years was about pleasing him, treading on eggshells, and hoping to get through the next day. And every job and every penny I earned went to him to make him feel good. And every night I'd listen to the key in the door, and I could tell you whether he was going to come upstairs, rip the clothes off the bed, take me downstairs, lock me in the living room, and scream at me all night. And then I'd have to go to work. And there I'd be. And of course the irony of all this was that I then got the job as Mrs. Herriot in All Creatures Great and Small on the BBC, and the Oxo Mum on ITV, the nation's treasure, living this supposedly idyllic life. And
but so the bad part there.
The bad parts were bad.
But there were some good parts.
Yes, of course. And two of the good bits were my sons, Michael and Robbie. And having never wanted children, of course, I wake up with this baby and I cannot believe the love that I feel for this baby. Immediately then, I think, gosh, how could my mother have given me away? And it had been there all my life, obviously. And I couldn't talk about it then because of my mum and dad, obviously, and not because they were ashamed, but they were just very private people and didn't want people to know. But I went to my parents and I said, look, I'm sorry, I'm sure you've known this day was coming. I need to know about my mother, and I probably, if I can, find her and meet her. But I'd met these girls while I was doing All Creatures Great and Small through an air hostess who worked for Air Canada in Montreal, who ran a children's charity, and they traced missing children. And one day I was doing All Creatures Great and Small, and I'm in this B&B, and my Nunzio rang and said, I got a number for you to ring in Canada, it's your mother. I said, Christ. Well, I said, you better ring her and warn her. No, I can't be bothered. I said, Nunzio, I can't just ring her up. Please, ring her. So 10 minutes later, I can't, it's the wrong number. I can't be bothered. It's your mother, you do it. Oh, thank you so much. So supportive. So I went to the B&B lady and I said, can I ring? So, you know that long distance ring, that brrr, brrr. And I'm stood in this B&B, 9 o'clock at night. Hello? Hi, is that Marjorie? Yes, who's calling? Oh, this is, shit, what do I say? Does the name Lynda Bellingham mean anything to you? And I said it not because I thought of the actress, but she might remember the name Bellingham from the adoption. No, dear, I'm sorry, you have the wrong number. Oh, please don't hang up, Marjorie. Marjorie, does the name Meredith Lee Hughes mean anything? Oh, dear Lord. May the 31st, 1948. Is it really you, dear? And she said, I thought one day that maybe you'd call. And her first question to me, my first question to her was, have you got any other children? No. Her first question to me was, are you a Christian? And it transpired that she's a Bible-thumping, born-again, Baptist Christian, and so I'm not Jewish and I'm not a Maori, so I had to rethink my whole life, you know. And we talked, obviously, and I made an arrangement to meet her, and she said, oh, Lynda, dear, I'm not sure we have the kind of house an actress can come to. So I had to explain to her I wasn't whatever kind of actress she thought I was. And when I got ready to go and see her, Mum and Dad said to me, I just want to say one thing to you, Lynda. You'll always be my daughter. Me and your mum, we love you. I want you to say to Marjorie, though, that when we picked you up that day from the doctor's surgery, it was the happiest day of our life. And we carried you down and we put you in the car. And as I started the engine, I looked in my mirror and I saw a young woman standing in a bus shelter. And as I put my foot down to drive off, she ran after the car, howling. And I didn't know whether to step on the brake or the accelerator, and I chose the accelerator. Will you say to her, I hope I made the right decision? And I reiterated this to Marjorie. Oh, yes, Lynda, dear, I had to. It was like a death. I had to say goodbye to you. But he did the right thing. And they came to London and they met my parents, and my mum did an album, and it was lovely. And it was, I went out to Canada on my own to spend time with Marjorie, and she said to me, the only time I had you to myself when you were born, they took me away and put me in this home. I'd visit every Saturday, but I was never allowed to have you on my own. So there was always someone there, except the day I had to take you to the doctors for the adoption. And I tried to find a mirror, because I'd never been able to look at me holding you. And I found a mirror in the hall way down, and I was holding you like this, trying to look at you. And I told you all the way in the taxi that I loved you, and I didn't want you to have low self-esteem, and that you must remember that I always loved you. She said, oh dear, it didn't work, did it? So there we have it, and I adore her, and I have great respect for her. But interestingly, I felt so guilty, and so I felt I was betraying Mum and Dad, and Mum and Dad have so much been my family, and that's why I think adoption is a fantastic thing if you can do it, because nature and nurture and all those arguments, I honestly can't imagine what I'd have been like if I'd stayed in middle Canada with the cowboys in Calgary. And, you know, all due respect to Marjorie, I'm just so happy that I had Mum and Dad.